Welcome back to the show, everyone, and today I have an absolutely mammoth news story for you. World of Warcraft, as well as all of the other Blizzard products, are going to, bar Diablo Immortal, are going to shut down in China soon. The overall situation here is quite incredible. I do imagine they will be back, but man, stuff has seriously went sour when it comes to the actual wheelings and dealings of the companies responsible for these games. I'm gonna get into Blizzard's statement first, but you should know one of the most important people who works at NetEase basically launched basically called Activision Blizzard out on something. It's kind of wild. Let's get into Blizzard's statement here. Okay, Blizzard Entertainment has announced, this is their press release, that it will be suspending most Blizzard game services in mainland China due to the expiration of its current licensing agreement with NetEase. Immortal stuff's all good. The two parties have not reached a deal to renew the agreements that is consistent with Blizzard's operating principles and commitments to players and employees. These expire in January of 2023, which is quite soon. And when that happens, you won't be able to log in. You won't be able to play. And this is kind of mammoth. And in a way, this is something that happened to World of Warcraft in the past whenever Blizzard abandoned the Nine and moved to NetEase. But I think there is absolutely a lot of bad blood here. Because did you know there was a second World of Warcraft massively multiplayer online role-playing game that was in development for 3 years with a team of around 100 people? Yeah, a lot of people don't actually know that, but that is a game that was very recently cancelled because negotiations between these companies broke down. Now, I'm gonna get you into the super spicy statement from Steven, but first, a word from today's sponsor, Shortform, who are straight up one of my favorite services on the entire internet. They're kind of like book summaries, but on utter steroids. Have you ever been, say, recommended a book, but you don't want to fully commit, you want to scope it out? Maybe you want to just get the gist of it? Or to more deeply understand its core ideas first? Well, that is where Shortform come in. They supercharge your ability to learn from and to enjoy books. And at shortform.com/Bellular News, you will find 5 days of unlimited access and an extra 20% off an annual subscription, which I myself have. They add value in a way that is frankly stunning. So take one of my favorite books, right? It's one I'd recommend to you. It's called Principles by Ray Dalio. So first, you can hit up their one-pager on the book. And if that piques your interest, you can then dive into their full book guide, where they have done so much heavy lifting in terms of giving you key context of the author, of the book's creation, synthesizing its ideas, helping you understand the perspective the author is coming from with the book. So these aren't just book summaries. They are your co-pilot. And then they essentially, network thought. They will smartly bring in relevant opinions from other books and other authors, all to help you actually get the complete picture, to understand multiple perspectives. They've got over 1,000 of the most popular books there, with more being added weekly. Plus, a lot of other content too, like incredible articles that are very, very, very timely and use their same approach. I've scoped out the competition in terms of services like this, and Shortform they're the best, by far. And they actually add the most creative value. It's not just replacing books. The way that they are bringing in ideas from other authors essentially helps you network your own thoughts, understand perspectives with better context, and turn information into knowledge, which is what actually sparks the joy of learning. And that is why I absolutely love what they do. It's like the limitless pill for books. Shortform.com/Bellular News for 5 days of unlimited access, and you'll get 20% off the annual plan with my link. Go check them out. They're awesome. Thanks for checking them out, guys. Seriously, they're awesome. They're a new brand, so we appreciate their support and yours. Okay, The cancelled World of Warcraft game, it was in development for 3 years. It was a co-development between Blizzard and NetEase. It was a new MMORPG. It was going to be set in a different time period to the current World of Warcraft timeline. That would either mean in the future, which I think would be extremely unlikely, or it would have been a past setting, perhaps, in the Warcraft universe. Who really knows what that could be? Warcraft 3 is obviously when a lot of factions actually meet each other and there can be more of a World of Warcraft. So it would have been fascinating to learn there, and I would absolutely love to just see some info on what this game would have been. But yes, they called it to a halt. 100 developers went, and some of them were offered internal transfers. So this is really the first... Yeah, this is the first main indicator that something was going wrong in the relationship between these two companies. The other thing, of course, is Diablo Immortal, which we all know about. Now, Diablo Immortal, the current understanding is that that was also quite significantly developed by NetEase, right? So, that's obviously the two companies doing a major project together. For things to go sour such that everything else has went, I think that's pretty crazy, right? Like, whatever the development agreement was for Immortal, it's unimpacted by this. But that Blizzard was willing to make such a move to pull out, that really does indicate something. Now, I want to touch on the market expectations here. So, there's a thing called the efficient market hypothesis, and it is just that, a hypothesis. But it kind of states that all known information is already priced into what price a stock is trading at. So that basically, unless your informational advantage constitutes insider trading, you can't play the stock market. Now, this is one of those things. The efficient market hypothesis is false, but regular investors should probably treat it like it is true so they don't gamble their own money. But the point there basically is, I bring this up to say that things get priced, future expectations get priced into the value that a stock is currently trading at. And what we can see here when we compare Activision Blizzard to NetEase, NetEase experiences quite a sharp drop, and then of course we do see the buyback, whereas Activision Blizzard doesn't really have much of a move at all. And this would kind of indicate to us that the market expectation is that revenues from Blizzard titles from mainland China, that those revenues are not going to be lost, right, in the sort of long term. Whereas for NetEase, you can see what is perhaps being priced into that is that those revenues are going to be lost. Now, where this story honestly gets a bit shocking to me is when we actually dive into the statements from these companies. And while it's not the one that came first, I do want to talk about what Simon Zhu said. So he's the president of NetEase Global Investment. Now, he said, as a gamer who spent tens of thousands of hours, and obviously here, machine translation stuff, obviously. So, we're doing our best. But as a gamer who spent tens of thousands of hours in World of Warcraft, StarCraft, and Overwatch, I feel so heartbroken that I will no longer have access to my account and my memories next year. We're talking about an MMO that people put a lot of time into, right? And I think a lot of people will be quick to be like, oh, this is just a business person, saying this sort of business speech. I would remind you that World of Warcraft is extremely popular in China. And to really put a fine point on that, do you remember Warcraft the beginning, the movie that was distinctly not followed by Warcraft the middle and Warcraft the end? Well, it had a worldwide gross of $439 million US. The domestic gross, that is what came from America, was a mere $47 million in the box office. America actually did terribly with the Warcraft movie. The Warcraft movie basically only did okay off the back of international sales. It did pretty good in EU, right, and other territories, but you can see here China, $222 million. More than half of this movie's gross came from China, and that does show us that Warcraft's massive in China. Like, that's something we've known for a long time, but I just really want to put a point in that. So for a lot of gamers in China who have been playing World of Warcraft for so many years, this is a massive loss and a major point of frustration. Now, This is what Simon said that really just made me think, holy shit, I need to go upstairs and I need to record now. He said, "One day, when what has happened behind the scenes could be told, developers and gamers will have a whole new level of understanding of how much damage a jerk can make." Feel terrible for players who lived in those worlds. Now, obviously, this is a translation, right? But, I mean, even if a tame version of this is, even if a tame version of that is what happened, I mean, that just makes you think, like, wow, what happened? What did Blizzard push for? Now, this is the response from Simon. If we're actually to think about NetEase's statement and then Blizzard China's statement, well, NetEase did quite a lot of mirroring what Blizzard said, but they said, as they were bringing more Blizzard games over to China, even getting a global release, each time the introduction of a game, we're excited because these games carry our passion and youth. That also in NetEase, there are thousands of hardcore fans of Blizzard games, which again, is very true. Therefore, we are more empathetic to the feelings of players at this moment. Before today, we had been doing our best and negotiating with Blizzard in good faith to seek continued cooperation in mainland China. And this is where things get interesting, and this is where we get a bit more, shall we say, business talk to what Simon has alluded to. After long negotiations, we were still unable to reach agreement with Activision Blizzard on some key terms of cooperation. Unfortunately, Activision Blizzard has announced earlier today that they are ceasing its cooperation and we will have to accept this decision. So that, everyone, is the crazy thing. The claim from NetEase is that talks weren't going well, and then Blizzard just announced this. Maybe without much talking to NetEase? It seemed like from Blizzard's perspective, the time for negotiation was over, and they just made this announcement. The statement ends saying, "After the shutdown, we will continue to hold our own way and not give up lightly. We believe that those who meet can meet again." Which, again, could be translation making it a bit more clunky. Could also be saying, "We'll see you at Azeroth," I guess, somehow. Now, as for what Blizzard China said, well, this is quite interesting. So, they've said that all these games, which are operated by Shanghai NetEase Network Technology Development Company, will cease operation midnight, January 24th, 2023. Now, there's two interesting things. Interesting thing number one, during the period from November to that date in January, WoW servers, games will all run. Dragonflight will come out as normal. So this is a really crazy situation where they're saying, hey, you will not have access to World of Warcraft as of midnight, January the 23rd. But if you want to, on November 28th, play Dragonflight, buy it, be our guest. Does make me think that Blizzard has some sort of plan here. All right? And then the second interesting thing is saying, after the game server is closed, all account data and character data in each game, which includes, but is not limited to, character data, game time, each game item, material, subscription, paid information, will be sealed. And they will properly handle game data in accordance with the requirements of laws and regulations to protect the legitimate rights and interests of users. For people who have paid for but not consumed virtual currency or game time, those will be refunded. So yeah, basically, all your stuff's going into the Blizzard Vault and it's going to be sealed. As of right now, people do not know what's going to happen to their characters, when they will get to play them again. I think there is not much of an expectation that World of Warcraft will disappear from China in any sort of long-term sense. I think you could actually even make the argument that this will be better for Blizzard's revenue. I mean, obviously they'll take a bit of a hit, but whatever deal that they negotiate with somebody else, one would presume that they basically got up, said, fuck off, we're doing something else to NetEase. They probably only said that if they had a deal ready to be signed, right? Surely? I mean, that's one of the only things that, in terms of risk, would make sense. Blizzard's not going to say, hey, we're pulling out of, like, I don't know, is China the largest country by population? It's bloody humongous anyway. They're not going to say, hey, we're pulling out of a massive market and we've got no plan to come back. I mean, that would be madness. Bobby would be crucified, and I think you would see that be reflected in the Activision Blizzard stock. So obviously there is some form, of plan, but there could be a disruption for those players. But still, the fact that there may be some drama in this between what is in the official statement and what Simon here has said, it does make me just kind of think, will some drama actually come out about this story? Now, if you want to think about the why here, well, Blizzard's operating principles and commitments to players and employees. And that's the funny thing, because you could then look at the, by the word of things, right? At like Blizzard's, their corporate mission statement, their, corporate values that they've talked about here. And maybe we could go through these and think, how will NetEase be violating them? I don't know. I suppose what I could say, what we could maybe speculate upon, is why. So one very transparent reason could just be money, right? Pretty obvious. They want more money, so they want a better deal. The license was coming up to expiry, right? So during the time period of that license, they were, they had to keep running the game, but they knew that was a looming deadline. And I think that other players in the game, right, like perhaps Tencent, they also are probably sitting there side-eyeing NetEase thinking, your contract is about to expire. I wonder what we can do. And one of the interesting things as well is, I think what a lot of businesses want is uncorrelated risk. So that they want things in different markets and stuff like that, so that if one thing goes down, they'll have something else. And certainly it's interesting with a lot of these very large Chinese companies that are entering the gaming space, or have really been in it for a long time. They, in many ways, are expanding outward to the West because of kind of like worry about domestic regulation and that kind of thing. And I think that licensing a very popular game that they know is very beloved within China, that comes from a Western developer, that is pretty damn good to have in your portfolio, right? Especially when World of Warcraft is a game that has very stably existed in China for quite a long time. In a world where these companies are worried about a lot of regulations, because there's, the regulations on games in China is a very interesting topic. It's one that has led to pretty major games from these companies being pulled. It's led to a lot of stock price volatility, things like that. So having just a nice, regular, reliable cash cow like World of Warcraft, perhaps like Overwatch 2, that sort of thing is just absolutely lovely for these companies. It's what they're going to want. So I would imagine that this basically just means diddly squat, and that in reality it is the commitment to their shareholders of delivering maximum value that's perhaps going to lead to Blizzard just seeking a better deal elsewhere. Now obviously that deal has not been announced, but we absolutely should expect that. As for other things Blizzard could be worried about, like we have had dramas, you'll of course know about the whole Blitzchung thing. There is even the reason why Diablo Immortal was delayed in the first place, which was it was a tweet that, or a Weibo post even, that, was, let's just say risque for the region. And that obviously caused something to happen that contributed to the delay of Immortal. Now, Immortal did eventually release in mainland China to, I would say roaring success when you actually look at the revenue that it's generated. Who knows, maybe it could have done better, maybe it could have done worse. But ultimately, maybe there's drama there that we don't know. Some risk factors that Blizzard are not comfortable with that we don't know. But I would say, if Blizzard were worried about things like, say, complying with state regulations, those are going to be materially impacting their business, no matter what partner they get, they actually go with to get the game out in China. Now, you could maybe say, well, what if Blizzard just does it themselves? Well, the thing there is, that's rather unprecedented. One example of a company doing that is Tesla. Right? Tesla China is like it is Tesla. And, you could maybe say that came because there's a lot of government support. They really wanted to move into the EV space, and certainly allowing a company like Tesla to move into their region without having to go through the regular licensing procedure that happens with a game like, say, World of Warcraft. Maybe they thought, okay, we'll get Tesla, we'll get some business. Also, importantly, engineering, technology, experience, things like that. It'll be better for educating their workforce in the electric vehicle space, which is one that I think strategically they want their country to be really good at, as many countries do, because EVs are kind of like the next big thing. So you could maybe say that something weird has happened where Blizzard has been able to move in to China themselves, where perhaps Blizzard China, because Blizzard China, that's the entity that had the licensing agreement with, of course, NetEase. So maybe Blizzard China has worked out a way where they can actually put the game out themselves. If that is the case, I mean, you're cutting a whole organization out of the chain. Yeah, there'll be some costs to pick up, but fundamentally, you're more vertically integrated. You are going to see more profit because there's not, there's less players in the revenue chain taking profit. Alternatively, though, they could achieve a similar thing by having a more lucrative deal with another partner in that region. Now, as for things going forward, well, Diablo Immortal is an interesting case because that is a co-development between those two companies. So, yeah, that's going to continue. But here's what I think is interesting. Years ago, when Immortal was in development, they started making this World of Warcraft mobile MMORPG. And as we covered in a recent video on this channel that was diving into the particulars of Activision Blizzard's, basically their earnings call, and where their revenue is coming from. And one of the things that really struck me in that video was, even in a quarter where they don't have super major box releases, you can see that between King, Blizzard, and Activision, mobile revenue is actually absolutely humongous and extremely impactful for them as a company. So the idea of getting a Warcraft mobile game, like a Warcraft mobile MMO, that absolutely, I think, is something that Blizzard strategically would have wanted to do. Maybe NetEase pitched it to them and they said yes. Who really knows? But a lot of work obviously went into that, all with Blizzard's approval. We know that strategically they want to move more and more towards mobile. Well, I would say not at the expense. They want to expand into mobile. I think that's a better word than move into mobile, because of course we're seeing the Warcraft development team also expand massively. So that basically, I think, means beyond Arclight Rumble, don't expect much in the way of Warcraft mobile games over the next while. And of course, Arclight Rumble, that's internally developed at Blizzard. I would say expect to see some form of new partnership, but that things may be a bit rocky, and that perhaps some bad blood is here, that maybe some dirty laundry will be aired. But absolutely, for millions of Chinese World of Warcraft players, this is bad news. I mean, you know what, I'll do it live, right? Let's just go to Warcraft logs. This is it's like a site for World of Warcraft. You don't really need to know much about it to understand the point I'm about to make. But what's fascinating, right? Let's just go to Naxxramas, which is the first raid in Wrath of the Lich King Classic. So, yeah, apparently there's a thing for Chinese warriors who are just sitting here at all of these top rankings. But the thing is, actually, this is not really the metric I would use. I would use, like, the overall parses. But the point basically is, when you actually go into these parse counts, there is so many of them from China, right? Like, one of the fascinating things is just how massive Warcraft Classic has been in China. I'd say it's probably, it's probably not. I mean, actually, even just look at this, right? So this is just the reports that have been added to Warcraft logs, I think, like, pretty much in real time. And you can see lots of Chinese names in there. So again, this is just making the point. World of Warcraft Classic is absolutely massive in the Chinese market. So yeah, this absolutely sucks massively for millions of players. As much as no Dragonflight will suck for a lot of people in China, Classic seems to be the thing that's been biggest there. So basically, there you go. That's the story. I think this is a developing one. And the fact that there is some bad blood and some drama, oh boy, that'll mean something. To leave you with, Shortform are a new sponsor with us, so I guess show them a welcome, say hello. I think they're a genuinely awesome service. I've tried multiple competitors. They're the one that I actually do legitimately use, because I do want the knowledge. You know, I want the knowledge from books, but there are so many books. A service like Shortform just helps me to navigate that space, and I would highly recommend it, especially if you're kind of thinking about a bit of self-development, you want to learn some new things. So for all that, the link's down below. So big thanks to Shortform for sponsoring us today. It's great to have their support in the channel. Thank you to you for watching, and I suppose let me know what you think's going to happen with this crazy story. I'll see you next time.